Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that often scares us, but is actually one of the most important stepping stones to success: failure. We've all heard the phrase, a fail forward. But what does it really mean? Failing forward means embracing failure not as an end, but as a crucial part of the journey toward growth and achievement. It means learning from every mistake, every setback, and every challenge. Instead of fearing failure, we use it as a tool to push us closer to our goals. When you fail forward, you don't just fall. You rise smarter, stronger, and more prepared than before. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the spirit of failing forward: persistence, resilience, and unwavering belief in your potential. Failure is not a destination. It's a stepping stone. It teaches us humility, sharpens our skills, and strengthens our character. It forces us to rethink, innovate, and improve. So the next time you face a setback, don't be discouraged. Remember, every failure is an opportunity to learn something new and to get one step closer to your dreams. Fail forward with courage and confidence, because that's how legends are made. Thank you. Failure is a stepping stone, not a dead end. When we think about failure, our natural instinct is often to see it as a final stop, a barrier that says, "You've reached your limit." But this perception is not only misleading, it's also harmful. Failure is not a wall blocking your path. It's more like a stepping stone that you can use to climb higher. Imagine you are climbing a mountain. Each step might be shaky or uncertain, and sometimes you might slip or lose your footing. But those slips don't mean the climb is impossible. They are part of the experience of learning how to find your balance and how to navigate the difficult terrain. Similarly, in life and in any endeavor, failure is that slip, that momentary loss of balance. It is not the end of the journey. It's part of the journey itself. When you fail, you gain valuable information, often more than you would from a smooth success. Failure reveals where your weaknesses lie, what assumptions were wrong, and which approaches don't work. This information is crucial because it helps you recalibrate your direction. If success were guaranteed without any failures, you might never stop to rethink or improve your methods. Failure forces you to pause, reflect, and adjust. In this way, failure serves as a guide, pointing you toward the right path. Many of the world's greatest successes came after a series of failures. For example, J.K. Rowling faced numerous rejections from publishers before Harry Potter was finally accepted. If she had seen those rejections as dead ends, the magical world she created might never have reached millions. Instead, she used each rejection as motivation to keep improving her work and to keep trying. Her failures were the stepping stones to her monumental success. This concept also applies beyond famous stories. In our daily lives, whether in school, work, or relationships, failure can teach us things success never will. When a project fails, you learn what doesn't work and how you might do better next time. When a relationship ends, you learn more about your needs, boundaries, and how to communicate better. Each failure uncovers a hidden lesson, a new insight that adds to your personal growth. One critical part of seeing failure as a stepping stone is changing your mindset. It requires moving away from the idea of failure as shame or final judgment and toward viewing it as a natural and necessary phase of learning. This mindset shift is essential because it determines how you respond to setbacks. If you see failure as the end, you might give up or become paralyzed by fear. But if you see failure as a step forward, you become curious and motivated. You start asking questions like, what can I learn here? How can I improve? What's the next step? Moreover, this approach fosters resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back after difficulties. When failure is seen as a stepping stone, resilience grows naturally because setbacks are no longer catastrophic. They are expected and manageable parts of the process. Resilience empowers you to keep going, to persist through challenges, and to maintain faith in your goals. Another important aspect is that failure helps you build humility and patience. Success can sometimes give a false sense of invincibility, but failure humbles you. It reminds you that progress is often nonlinear and that mastery takes time. This humility opens you up to learning from others, accepting help, and being open to new ideas, all of which are vital for long-term achievement. In practical terms, embracing failure as a stepping stone means actively seeking feedback and reflecting on experiences. It means not brushing mistakes under the rug, but analyzing them, taking responsibility, and using that knowledge to move forward. It's about celebrating the courage to try, even if the attempt doesn't lead to immediate success. In summary, failure is not a full stop on your path. It's a comma, a pause, a necessary step that leads you onward and upward. It's the experience that enriches your journey, sharpens your skills, and prepares you for future success. If you can internalize this truth and apply it, you transform failure from something to fear into something to embrace. Embrace failure as part of the growth process. Growth, whether personal or professional, rarely happens in a straight line. It is messy, unpredictable, and often uncomfortable. At the heart of this growth lies failure, not as an obstacle to avoid, but as an essential ingredient to embrace. To truly grow, you must welcome failure, understand its value, and let it be a catalyst for transformation. The first step in embracing failure as part of growth is recognizing that failure is natural. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has faced setbacks and disappointments along the way. From entrepreneurs who watched their startups collapse to athletes who missed crucial goals, failure is an unavoidable part of the human experience. It is not a sign of weakness or incompetence. It is a signal that you are pushing boundaries and stepping outside your comfort zone. When you try new things, innovate, or set ambitious goals, failure is almost inevitable. But this is exactly why failure should be embraced. It means you are taking risks, challenging yourself, and expanding your capabilities. Growth demands that you leave behind familiar territory and enter spaces where you might stumble. If you never fail, it might mean you are not trying hard enough or not stretching yourself enough. Embracing failure requires shifting your perspective on what failure represents. Instead of viewing failure as a negative reflection of your abilities or worth, see it as feedback. Feedback that tells you what needs to be adjusted, what skills need sharpening, or which strategies need revision. This feedback is invaluable because it guides your development. Without it, you might continue repeating the same mistakes or remain stuck in ineffective patterns. One of the most powerful ways to embrace failure for growth is by cultivating a learning mindset. This mindset focuses on progress rather than perfection. It encourages curiosity, experimentation, and the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed over time. People with a learning mindset see failure as a necessary step toward mastery. They ask questions like, "Oh, what did I learn from this?" rather than a "Why did I fail?" Furthermore, embracing failure promotes creativity and innovation. When failure is no longer feared, people are more willing to take creative risks and explore unconventional ideas. This openness leads to breakthroughs and discoveries that wouldn't be possible without the freedom to fail. Many scientific inventions and artistic masterpieces came from repeated trials, errors, and failures. The willingness to fail is what separates innovators from those who stick to safe, unchallenging paths. In practical terms, embracing failure involves being honest with yourself about your setbacks and using them intentionally. Instead of hiding from failure or making excuses, acknowledge it openly. Analyze what went wrong, what external factors influenced the outcome, and what internal choices contributed. This honest reflection builds self-awareness, which is a foundation for real growth. It also means developing resilience. Resilience is not about avoiding failure, but bouncing back from it stronger and wiser. By embracing failure as part of growth, you learn to handle disappointment without losing motivation or confidence. You understand that setbacks are temporary and that persistence is crucial to long-term success. Another important aspect is how embracing failure affects your relationship with fear. Fear of failure often paralyzes people from trying new things or taking bold steps. When failure is embraced, fear loses its grip. You learn to see failure not as a threat, but as an opportunity. This shift reduces anxiety, increases risk-taking, and allows you to pursue goals with greater courage. Finally, embracing failure in the growth process helps build empathy and humility. When you experience failure, you become more understanding of others who face similar challenges. This shared experience fosters connection and support, making the journey less isolating. Humility arises because failure teaches you that success is not guaranteed, and it requires effort, learning, and sometimes help from others. In essence, growth without failure is incomplete. Failure is the fuel that powers the engine of growth. By embracing failure as an integral part of this process, you unlock your potential, develop resilience, and open the door to continuous improvement. Instead of running from failure, invite it in as a trusted teacher and guide on your path. Learn and adapt from your mistakes. One of the most important aspects of failing forward is not simply experiencing failure, but actively learning from it and adapting your approach. Failure without reflection is just a misstep, but failure followed by insight and adjustment becomes a powerful tool for growth and success. This process of learning and adapting is what transforms setbacks into stepping stones and ensures that each failure brings you closer to your goals. When you make a mistake or face failure, it can be tempting to ignore it, blame external factors, or simply move on without a deep examination. However, this superficial response wastes valuable opportunities. Every failure carries embedded lessons, often disguised as discomfort or frustration. To truly benefit from failure, you must pause, analyze, and seek to understand what went wrong and why. Learning from mistakes begins with honest self-reflection. This means looking at the situation objectively and asking tough questions. What decisions or actions led to this outcome? Were there warning signs I overlooked? Did I misjudge the resources or time needed? Did I lack a skill or knowledge that was critical? How did my mindset or emotions influence my choices? Answering these questions candidly helps identify specific areas where you can improve. Where you can improve. Adaptation follows learning. Once you understand the root causes of failure, you can develop new strategies or behaviors that increase your chances of success next time. This might mean acquiring new skills, changing your approach, seeking advice, or setting more realistic goals. Adaptation is a dynamic process. It requires flexibility and a willingness to change course rather than stubbornly repeating the same mistakes. A great example of learning and adapting comes from the world of sports. Athletes constantly review their performances, both wins and losses, to fine-tune their techniques and strategies. A basketball player might analyze missed shots to adjust their form. A runner might change their training routine based on how their body responded to previous workouts. Without this process of learning and adapting, progress would stall, no matter how talented the athlete. This principle applies to all areas of life. In business, companies that fail to learn from market feedback or operational mistakes risk collapse. But those that study their failures carefully and adapt their products, services, or management styles thrive in competitive environments. The same holds true in personal growth. Reflecting on social mistakes, communication failures, or missed opportunities allows you to improve relationships and build stronger connections. Importantly, learning and adapting from mistakes also requires emotional intelligence. It demands humility to admit errors, courage to face uncomfortable truths, and patience to implement changes. Without these qualities, people may become defensive or discouraged, which blocks growth. Emotional intelligence helps you process failure constructively, rather than being overwhelmed by guilt or shame. Another crucial factor is creating a system for continuous feedback and improvement. This can be formal, like regular performance reviews or coaching sessions, or informal, like journaling about your experiences and lessons learned. Systems that encourage ongoing reflection help you catch small errors early and adjust before they escalate into bigger problems. The process of learning and adapting also builds confidence over time. Each time you successfully adjust after a failure, you prove to yourself that setbacks are manageable and that you have the capability to overcome challenges. This growing self-trust makes future failures less intimidating and encourages a proactive approach to problem solving. Furthermore, this process is not always linear or smooth. Sometimes, the first adaptation might not work, leading to new failures and lessons. This iterative cycle is normal and necessary. It's through repeated attempts, adjustments, and refinements that real mastery and success are achieved. Patience and persistence are essential companions on this journey. In summary, learning and adapting from mistakes transforms failure from a negative event into a powerful source of insight. It is the active engagement with failure that distinguishes those who merely experience setbacks from those who grow stronger and wiser because of them. By embracing this process, you equip yourself with the tools to continuously improve and move closer to your goals, no matter how challenging the path may be. Persistence is key. When we talk about failing forward, one of the most vital qualities that enables success despite failure is persistence. Persistence is the relentless determination to keep moving forward regardless of the obstacles, setbacks, or disappointments encountered along the way. It is the refusal to give up, even when failure seems overwhelming or discouraging. Without persistence, failure can easily become a stopping point instead of a stepping stone. Persistence means staying committed to your goals and dreams over the long haul. It acknowledges that the road to success is rarely smooth or easy. Instead, it is often filled with challenges that test your resolve, patience, and strength. These challenges may come in the form of failed projects, rejection, criticism, or personal doubts, but persistence pushes you to keep trying, adapting, and believing that your efforts will eventually pay off. History is full of stories that highlight the power of persistence. Consider the example of Walt Disney, who faced numerous failures early in his career. He was fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination and experienced multiple business failures before creating the Disney empire we know today. His persistence allowed him to overcome rejection and setbacks, ultimately leading to groundbreaking success in animation and entertainment. Disney's story reminds us that failure is not a reason to quit, but a reason to push harder. Persistence also helps build mental toughness. It develops your ability to endure discomfort, uncertainty, and frustration without losing motivation. This mental toughness is essential because failure often brings emotional pain, disappointment, fear, and self-doubt. A persistent mindset doesn't deny these feelings but chooses to act despite them. It separates those who achieve their goals from those who give up prematurely. In practical terms, persistence means taking consistent action day after day, even when progress seems slow or invisible. It means showing up and doing the work, regardless of mood or external circumstances. Sometimes the progress made through persistence is incremental, small improvements that accumulate over time. These small wins are vital because they build momentum and confidence, making the next step easier. Persistence is also closely linked to having a clear vision and strong purpose. When you deeply understand why your goal matters to you, you are more likely to persist through difficulties. Purpose acts as a compass during tough times, reminding you of the bigger picture and helping you push past temporary failures. It transforms setbacks from permanent roadblocks into temporary detours. Moreover, persistence encourages a problem-solving mindset. Rather than seeing failure as a reason to stop, persistent people see it as a challenge to overcome. They ask themselves, what can I do differently? And how can I improve? This proactive approach keeps you engaged and forward-focused, rather than stuck in frustration or defeat. Another important aspect of persistence is the willingness to seek help and collaborate. Sometimes persisting alone can be exhausting or ineffective. Knowing when to ask for guidance, learn from others, or team up can make persistence more productive. Surrounding yourself with supportive people who encourage your efforts can sustain your motivation and provide fresh perspectives when you hit roadblocks. Persistence also involves embracing patience. Success rarely happens overnight, and the process of failing forward can take time. Patience allows you to maintain effort without immediate rewards and to trust the process of growth. It helps you avoid impulsive decisions driven by discouragement and instead stay committed to steady progress. In addition, persistence builds resilience, the ability to bounce back stronger from failure. Each time you overcome a setback through persistent effort, you reinforce your confidence and belief in your capacity to handle future challenges. This growing resilience creates a positive cycle where persistence leads to success, which in turn strengthens persistence. Finally, persistence is a habit that can be cultivated. It is developed through intentional practice, mindset shifts, and repeated action. By setting clear goals, breaking them into manageable tasks, and committing to daily progress, you train yourself to persist even when faced with failure. Failure. Over time, persistence becomes an integral part of your character and approach to life. Failure builds character and humility. Failure is not just a hurdle on the road to success. It is also a profound teacher that shapes who we are at our core. One of the less obvious but deeply important benefits of failure is how it builds character and instills humility. These qualities are essential for long-term success and meaningful growth because they influence how we relate to ourselves, others, and the world around us. Character is often described as the sum of our values, ethics, and emotional strength. It's what determines how we respond to life's challenges and how we treat others. Failure tests our character by confronting us with difficult emotions such as disappointment, frustration, and sometimes shame. It forces us to face reality honestly and evaluate our strengths and weaknesses without illusion. This process of facing failure head-on cultivates traits like integrity, perseverance, and courage. Closely linked to character is the ability to recognize and accept our limitations and imperfections. It's about having an honest view of ourselves, not seeing failure as a threat to our worth, but as a natural part of learning and growing. Failure breaks down arrogance and complacency, teaching us that no matter how talented or capable we are, there is always room to improve and learn. When we succeed without ever facing failure, it can be easy to develop overconfidence or a fixed mindset. We might start to believe that our abilities are innate and unchangeable, which limits growth. Failure, however, brings us back to reality. It reminds us that success is not guaranteed, and that effort, learning, and adaptation are continuous processes. This recognition nurtures humility and openness to new ideas, feedback, and collaboration. The development of character through failure also includes emotional resilience. Failure often brings uncomfortable feelings, but learning to manage those emotions in healthy ways strengthens emotional intelligence. Instead of reacting with anger, denial, or despair, we learn to respond with reflection, acceptance, and constructive action. This emotional maturity is a key component of strong character. Humility gained from failure fosters better relationships. When we understand our vulnerabilities and imperfections, we become more empathetic and compassionate toward others. We realize that everyone makes mistakes and faces struggles, which promotes kindness and reduces judgment. This humility creates an environment of trust and support, both personally and professionally. Moreover, failure builds character by teaching accountability. When you fail, you are faced with a choice: to blame others or circumstances, or to take responsibility for your actions. Those who choose accountability grow stronger because they control their response to failure rather than being controlled by it. Nansigatu. This sense of ownership is empowering and leads to greater self-confidence and respect from others. Many well-known leaders and innovators credit their failures with shaping their character. Nelson Mandela, for instance, endured decades of imprisonment and setbacks, but emerged with incredible humility, forgiveness, and strength. His failures in the face of apartheid became the foundation of his moral authority and leadership. Failure also teaches patience, a critical aspect of character. When things don't go as planned, patience helps us endure setbacks without giving in to frustration or despair. It teaches us that worthwhile goals often require sustained effort over time, and that immediate success is rare. This patience nurtured by failure supports long-term vision and commitment. Another dimension of character shaped by failure is grit, a sustained passion and perseverance for long-term goals. Failure challenges your grit because it forces you to continue despite discouragement. Those who build grit through failure develop a toughness that allows them to face future challenges with determination rather than defeat. Finally, failure instills a sense of gratitude. When you experience failure, you gain a deeper appreciation for success when it comes. You learn to value progress, hard work, and the journey itself, rather than just the end result. This gratitude enriches your life and keeps you grounded. Innovation often arises from failure. Failure and innovation are more closely linked than many people realize. At first glance, failure might seem like the opposite of success and creativity, but in reality, failure is a fundamental driver of innovation. Innovation thrives in an environment where mistakes are seen as experiments, learning opportunities, and stepping stones toward new ideas and breakthroughs. Without failure, true innovation would be rare or even impossible. When you innovate, you are essentially trying something new, a new product, method, idea, or process. This inherently involves uncertainty and risk. Because innovation requires venturing into the unknown, it's inevitable that many attempts won't work as planned. Failure in this context is a natural part of exploring uncharted territory. Rather than being a setback, these failures become critical feedback that informs the next iteration or approach. One of the key reasons failure drives innovation is because it encourages experimentation. When innovators are not afraid to fail, they are more willing to test bold, unconventional ideas. This willingness to experiment leads to discoveries that might not have happened if they stuck only to proven methods. In fact, many groundbreaking inventions and scientific advances have come after multiple failed attempts. The light bulb, the airplane, penicillin, all are examples where failure was a necessary part of the journey to success. Failure also forces you to question assumptions. When an idea fails, it challenges the initial beliefs or hypotheses behind it. This prompts critical thinking and problem solving, encouraging innovators to dig deeper and think differently. Questioning assumptions can lead to new perspectives and creative solutions that might otherwise have been overlooked. Moreover, failure cultivates resilience and adaptability, two qualities essential for innovation. Not every idea will work perfectly on the first try, and the ability to bounce back from failure and adapt your approach is vital. Innovators learn to iterate, to refine their ideas step by step, using feedback from failures to improve. This cycle of trial, error, and adjustment is at the core of the innovation process. An excellent example of failure leading to innovation is the story of the Wright brothers. Before successfully inventing the airplane, they faced countless crashes, mechanical breakdowns, and design failures. Each failure provided new insights that helped them tweak their designs, control systems, and materials. Without their persistence through these failures, powered flight might have been delayed significantly. Failure also drives innovation by highlighting gaps or problems that need solving. When something fails, it exposes weaknesses or unmet needs. This creates opportunities for new ideas to emerge. For example, failed attempts to create more efficient batteries have pushed scientists to explore new materials and technologies, leading to advances in energy storage. In business, companies that embrace failure as part of their culture often become more innovative. Organizations that punish failure harshly tend to discourage risk-taking and creativity. Conversely, companies like Google and Amazon encourage experimentation and accept that failure is part of the process. This culture of the failing fast allows them to innovate rapidly and stay ahead of competitors. Innovation through failure also requires psychological safety, an environment where people feel safe to take risks and share ideas without fear of ridicule or harsh consequences. When failure is normalized and viewed as learning, teams are more likely to propose bold ideas and collaborate openly. This fosters a rich flow of creativity that fuels innovation. Additionally, failure can inspire new forms of innovation by forcing you to pivot or rethink your approach entirely. Sometimes, when one idea fails, it leads to a completely different innovation that might be even more valuable. even more valuable. Many successful startups have pivoted after initial failures, discovering new markets or products along the way. Lastly, innovation through failure is a reminder that success is rarely instant or linear. It often involves a messy, iterative process where ideas evolve, improve, or even transform completely. Embracing this reality allows innovators to remain patient, persistent, and motivated despite setbacks. Failure teaches resilience and grit. One of the most powerful lessons that failure imparts is how to develop resilience and grit, two essential qualities for long-term success and personal growth. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, while grit is the persistent effort and passion to achieve long-term goals despite obstacles and setbacks. Failure, though painful and often discouraging, acts as a crucible in which these traits are forged and strengthened. When you face failure, it inevitably tests your emotional and mental endurance. The disappointment, frustration, and sometimes even shame can be overwhelming. However, those who learn to navigate through these emotions without giving up develop resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity. Resilience is not something people are simply born with. It is a skill that is developed through experience, reflection, and the conscious choice to keep moving forward. Experiencing failure forces you to confront discomfort and uncertainty head-on. It teaches you that setbacks are a natural part of any worthwhile journey. This acceptance helps reduce the fear and anxiety that often accompany challenges. Instead of being paralyzed by the possibility of failure, resilient people learn to face difficulties with calmness and composure. They become more adept at managing stress and maintaining focus on their goals. Moreover, failure nurtures grit by encouraging persistence. Grit is about sustained effort over time, the willingness to keep working toward a goal, even when progress is slow or results are disappointing. Each time you encounter failure, but continue to push forward, your grit strengthens. You begin to see challenges not as insurmountable barriers, but as tests of your determination and commitment. Research by psychologist Angela Duckworth has shown that grit is a better predictor of success than talent or intelligence in many cases. What sets gritty individuals apart is their ability to persevere through difficulties, maintain motivation, and keep a long-term vision in mind. Failure experiences contribute significantly to building this trait by providing opportunities to practice endurance and resilience. Another important aspect of resilience developed through failure is adaptability. When a plan fails, you are forced to rethink your approach, adjust your strategies, and find alternative paths. This flexibility is critical in an ever-changing world where rigid thinking can lead to stagnation. Failure teaches you to be resourceful, open-minded, and willing to learn from mistakes, all components of resilient behavior. Furthermore, failure provides valuable feedback that helps you identify weaknesses and areas for improvement. Resilient individuals use this feedback constructively rather than viewing failure as a personal flaw. They adopt a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed through effort and learning. This mindset fuels resilience and grit by framing failure as a temporary setback and a chance to grow stronger. Experiencing failure repeatedly also builds emotional intelligence, which is closely linked to resilience. You learn to regulate your emotions, maintain optimism, and develop empathy for others facing similar struggles. This emotional strength allows you to recover more quickly and support those around you, creating a positive cycle of resilience within communities or teams. Real-life stories abound of people whose resilience and grit were forged through failure. Thomas Edison famously failed thousands of times before inventing the practical light bulb. Each failure taught him something new and strengthened his resolve to succeed. Similarly, J.K. Rowling faced rejection from multiple publishers before the Harry Potter series became a global phenomenon. These examples illustrate that resilience and grit are cultivated through persistent effort and learning from failure. Additionally, failure teaches humility, which is intertwined with resilience. When you accept that failure is a part of life and not a reflection of your worth, you become more balanced and grounded. This humility makes it easier to recover from setbacks because you are less likely to be crushed by pride or unrealistic expectations. Developing resilience and grit through failure also has long-term benefits for your mental health. People who can cope with failure constructively tend to experience lower levels of stress and anxiety. They build confidence in their ability to handle challenges, which reduces fear of future failures and encourages taking healthy risks. In sum, failure is a critical teacher that molds resilience and grit. These qualities empower you to face life's uncertainties with courage, maintain steady progress toward your goals, and bounce back from setbacks with renewed strength. Failure motivates you to improve and grow continuously. One of the most transformative effects of failure is its power to motivate ongoing improvement and personal growth. Unlike success, which can sometimes breed complacency or overconfidence, failure serves as a catalyst that pushes you to reflect critically, seek new knowledge, and strive for better versions of yourself and your work. This motivation to improve is essential for anyone committed to achieving excellence and reaching their full potential. Failure disrupts the status quo. When things don't go as planned, it signals that something needs to change. Whether it's your approach, your skills, your mindset, or your circumstances. This disruption can be uncomfortable, but it is also an important wake-up call that challenges you to take stock and ask difficult questions. What went wrong? What could I have done differently? What do I need to learn or develop? These questions spark curiosity and drive self-assessment, which are foundational for growth. The motivation to improve that failure inspires is often fueled by a desire to avoid repeating the same mistakes. One is to experience the frustration or disappointment of failure again. This natural aversion encourages you to dig deeper into the root causes of your setbacks and commit to meaningful change. Instead of merely patching over problems, you become more intentional about developing new skills, acquiring knowledge, or changing habits. In this way, failure acts as a mirror reflecting areas for growth. It makes blind spots visible, revealing gaps in your understanding, preparation, or execution. For example, a failed presentation might highlight the need to improve communication skills, or a rejected business proposal might indicate the importance of market research. Failure pinpoints where effort should be concentrated, allowing you to direct your energy efficiently toward improvement. Moreover, the motivation driven by failure is often long-lasting because it is grounded in personal experience rather than abstract goals. When you have felt the sting of failure firsthand, your commitment to growth becomes deeply meaningful. This emotional connection to the need for improvement can sustain your efforts even when progress is slow or difficult. Failure also fosters a mindset of continuous learning. Instead of seeing your abilities as fixed or your current state as good enough, you develop a growth mindset, a belief that you can always improve through effort and learning. This mindset is crucial for lifelong growth because it encourages curiosity, experimentation, and resilience in the face of setbacks. Additionally, failure teaches the value of patience and growth. Improvement rarely happens overnight. It requires sustained effort, practice, and sometimes multiple attempts. Failure reminds you that growth is a journey, not a destination, helping you maintain focus and motivation over the long term. The motivation that failure creates often extends beyond individual growth to impact how you engage with others. Failure can encourage you to seek feedback, mentorship, and collaboration, recognizing that outside perspectives are valuable for improvement. This openness to learning from others enriches your growth process and fosters a more supportive environment for development. Importantly, failure motivates you to set more realistic and informed goals. Early failures provide data that help you refine your objectives and strategies. Instead of chasing unrealistic dreams, you learn to set achievable milestones that build confidence and competence step by step. This strategic adjustment increases the likelihood of future success. In professional settings, failure-driven motivation often leads to innovation and process improvement. Teams that analyze failures systematically can identify inefficiencies, risks, or opportunities for improvement. And amada. This culture of continuous improvement leads to better products, services, and performance overall. Failure also encourages creativity in problem solving. When initial attempts fail, you are pushed to think outside the box and explore alternative solutions. This creative drive expands your capabilities and enriches your approach to challenges. Furthermore, the motivation to improve nurtured by failure is closely tied to self-discipline. Overcoming failure requires setting priorities, managing time effectively, and persevering through difficulties. This discipline strengthens your capacity to achieve goals and sustain growth over time. In sum, failure ignites a powerful motivation to improve and grow continuously. It challenges complacency, sharpens self-awareness, and fosters a mindset dedicated to learning and development. This motivation not only propels you toward success, but also enriches your journey, making it more meaningful and rewarding. In embracing failure as a natural and valuable part of our journey, we unlock the true potential within ourselves. Failing forward teaches us resilience, humility, innovation, and continuous growth. It shifts our mindset from fearing setbacks to welcoming them as essential lessons on the path to success. So the next time you face failure, remember, it's not the end, but an invitation to learn, adapt, and move forward stronger than before. Let failure be your greatest teacher and your stepping stone toward a brighter, more accomplished future.